Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Alright people, you begged and pleaded with me to talk about a good comic, so fine, here you go. Let's talk about the Blue Beetle. Now immediately you want to roll your eyes. Blue Beetle? That sounds like a parody of a superhero. Something some untalented hack at a movie studio thought up because they haven't read a real comic book in years. And you know what? Screw you! Blue Beetle is friggin' awesome! At least until the book was cancelled due to low sales. As such, I blame all of you people for its cancellation! Okay, I take it back. But before we get into the awesomeness that is the latest incarnation of the character, let's look at the history of the Blue Beetle. Stepping into the Wayback Machine, we find police officer Dan Garrett, who, with a chainmail costume and the vitamin 2X, he gained superpowers to fight crime. Remember kids, drugs are bad for you, unless they give you superpowers.
The secret compartment of my ring I fill with an underdog super energy pill.
Blue Beetle was actually pretty popular in his day, to the point where he even got a radio show for a while. And remember, these were the days before TV, so this was a big deal. But as was the fleeting passions of the Golden Age of comics, eventually people stopped listening and stopped buying, and the character was sold to another publisher. His origin was revised so that now he was an archaeologist who discovered an ancient Egyptian artifact. Compelled to touch the artifact, a mystical blue scarab, Dan Garrett was given incredible powers whenever he shouted the words, Kaji Da. You know, what is it about ancient Egyptian artifacts in fiction that they always have magical powers? Think about it! Black Adam got his powers from another mystical scarab, all the mummies that pop up because of necklaces and jewels, oh, and let's not forget the artifact that makes you want to play card games for the rest of your life. And to get all this crap, you had to pass insurmountable odds in Indiana Jones-esque fashion, and more than one person would die along the way. It seems to me that ancient Egypt was a freaking death trap! Screw archaeology! Ever think that maybe there was a reason this crap was buried? Warning, the views of Linkara may not reflect the views of the producers of Atop the Fourth Wall. Which actually would be Linkara, so make of that what you will. Eventually, the publishing rights fell into the hands of Charlton Comics, where they decided to take a new spin on things. Enter Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man. Ditko had left Marvel for unknown reasons, though the most popular rumors suggest that he was upset over the fact that the Green Goblin's identity was revealed to be supporting cast member Norman Osborn. Ditko was a staunch believer in Ayn Rand's objectivist philosophy and believed that someone like the Green Goblin should be some anonymous individual, since evildoers are not necessarily going to be people you know, even if drama suggests otherwise. Freed of the constraints of Marvel, he reworked the Blue Beetle into one of the finest legacy heroes in comics. What's a legacy hero? It's when you have characters who take over the mantles of other heroes. Both Robin and the Flash are popular examples, each one having at least 4 different people under their respective identities. Even I know that someday there will be a desire to have me retire, to have someone else take over the mantle of Linkara. But let me tell you something! They'll never take me alive, you hear me? I will always be Linkara! No one else will ever do it! I'll kill you all first! Happy pills are happy! So, anyway, Blue Beetle II. Deciding to establish some continuity with the character, they had Ted Kord trying to rescue his mentor, Dan Garrett, who revealed to Ted his secret identity as the Blue Beetle. When Dan ended up buried in a pile of rubble, Ted swore to take over as the Blue Beetle. Ted was a scientist and didn't have access to the ancient Scarab, so he devised technological ways of fighting crime, with a special flash gun that had multiple purposes, acrobatic fighting style, and a large Scarab-shaped aircraft referred to as the Bug. Yeah, not exactly I will become a bat and strike terror in the hearts of criminals, but hey, if you've been watching this show long enough, you know there are much worse origin stories. If you can find the 6 issues of Charlton Comics' Blue Beetle series, I say grab them up. Sure, the dialogue is kind of weird in that Silver Age kind of way, but Steve Ditko had some great art for the series and wrote most of the plot breakdowns and contributed to the dialogue, creating a character who was unquestionably moral, owing once more to his objectivist beliefs. A particular issue I'd like to spotlight is issue 5, where Blue Beetle must fight a villain called Our Man. It's based on a statue in the story that's supposed to represent humankind as a heartless, weak entity that is cruel to its own people. A member of the counterculture movement dons a costume that resembles the statue and tries to destroy inspirational art that depicts humanity at its best and most positive. Damn dirty hippies! For a Silver Age story, it's a pretty well thought out debate on the subject of positive or negative representations of humanity, and of course Blue Beetle eventually triumphs, showing that for all of humankind's faults, we're essentially a good lot. All of the Charlton Comics Blue Beetle appearances are collected in DC's Action Hero Archives, Volume 2, and I highly recommend it. Now let's jump ahead 20 years later. DC has purchased all of Charlton Comics' superhero line, and following Crisis on Infinite Earths, have integrated the heroes into their main line. Blue Beetle gets a big push with a new solo series as well as membership on the new Justice League International team, though as the book went into more humorous stories, his role was more to make jokes with his fellow compatriot Booster Gold. I never really read his solo series, though the only issue of it that I have features a villain who wants to kill firefighters because apparently they ruined his life or something. So yeah, he's the hero of the 9/11 conspiracy theorists. DC didn't really do much with the character. He had his fan base and was a supporting character on the Birds of Prey book, and appeared in the boringly lame miniseries Living Assault Weapons, which reunited the Charlton heroes, but otherwise he didn't get major attention again until Countdown to Infinite Crisis. No, I don't mean that Countdown. That's kind of the problem with the more well-known events. They tend to have similar names. Countdown to Infinite Crisis was a one-shot that started the actual build-up to the 2005 miniseries Infinite Crisis, which I've talked about more than once. Countdown to Final Crisis was an atrociously idiotic 51-issue weekly series that just insulted the intelligence and good sense of every comic fan that had the misfortune to pick up its fetid contents. In Countdown to Infinite Crisis, Ted Kord uncovers a conspiracy by former hero Maxwell Lord to kill all superpowered beings throughout the planet. While the characterizations of the heroes who continually see Ted as a joke as he voices his concerns about his suspicions range from spot on to just insulting to the readers, it's still an enjoyable read and arguably one of the greatest Blue Beetle stories of all time. However, it ends with Ted imprisoned by Maxwell Lord and offered the chance to join his plan. Now, some people will argue that Ted would have joined in if only to try to undermine the plan from within, but I gotta tell you, knowing how Steve Ditko conceived the character, the objectivist backgrounds, and his heroic stand against evil, Ted Kord's final words, "Rot in hell, Max," show what kind of hero Ted was. And of course, DC is nice enough to let us see Ted's brains splattered all over the panel. How tasteful. Why don't you just show Marvin and Wendy from the Super Friends cartoon getting eaten by a demonic wonder dog? Oh, I think I'll shut up now. Actually no! What is with the insane level of gore and violence? Why isn't there a book out there that can just be positive, fun, and entertaining to read? Oh, hell yeah! Now we're into the good stuff, people! During Infinite Crisis, they unveiled the third Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, a Latino teenager from El Paso who found the Blue Beetle Scarab and it became embedded in his spine, accessing the power that Ted Kord was never able to. And yes, his name is Jaime, not Jamie. Don't make me pull out the "more you know" logo. After Infinite Crisis, Jaime disappeared for a year in story, the Scarab having teleported him away because it was afraid of the Green Lanterns. When he returned to his family and learned of the missing year, he did what any superhero would do and told them the truth about his heroic identity. Wait, what? A superhero who actually trusts his friends and loved ones with his secret? Actually allowing them more protection instead of less? No! That's just crazy! What were they thinking? This series had a big supporting cast, from Jaime's family to his best friends Paco and Brenda, his girlfriend, the magic superheroine Tracy 13, and so many more. The dialogue was clever and funny and really full of great character moments. The problem was that, well, nobody was buying the book, including me. At least at first. I was willing to give the book a chance, but to be perfectly honest, the first few issues of the series are, well, average at best. It sets the series up, but really, if you're gonna read the book, I'd actually start with the second and third trade paperbacks, since that's when things really began to take off. It established a few new facts. For one, the Blue Beetle Scarab that Dan Garrett had actually wasn't magic, but damaged alien technology. That alien race, the Reach, arrives on Earth and does the most evil thing imaginable. They make peaceful contact with the governments on Earth and open diplomatic negotiations! Those bastards! Actually, the Reach have one of the most unique invasion ideas ever. Instead of trying to conquer worlds through open conquest, they slowly ingratiate themselves into civilizations over a period of 100 years, altering the food supply so that a species will become more docile and open to subjugation, and eventually manufacture a disaster that forces the entire race to willingly join them as a subservient society. They usually have a primary agent that acts on their behalf, powered by the blue Scarab that Jaime now possesses. This is actually starting to sound more like the backstory to Neutro. In this case, something went wrong with the Scarab, and it has now gained free will, willingly wanting to help Jaime fight the Reach. During this, there are a lot of standalone issues that seem like they don't contribute to the overall plot, but actually all contribute in some fashion. The Endgame storyline is one of the best stories I've ever read, and I can't recommend it enough. So of course, after 36 issues, defeating aliens and supervillains, and saving countless people, what's next? Damn it! Why was the series cancelled? Low sales. But actually, it had low sales for a good chunk of its life, but DC Editorial liked the book, so they were willing to let it run its course as best as they could. So why weren't people buying it? Well, a couple of reasons. Some say there wasn't enough marketing, but actually when the book first came out it was promoted in ads, and Jaime appeared in several other books, including Brave and the Bold, Booster Gold, and Teen Titans. His book was the only non-Green Lantern book to have a tie-in to the excellent Sinestro Corps War event, and it actually acted like a proper tie-in book. No, the big reason people weren't reading it was because it wasn't Ted Kord. People were really pissed that Ted had died the way he did, and weren't willing to give him a chance. And you people suck! Sorry, let me just say something. At the end of the first story arc of the most recent Booster Gold series, Booster travels back in time and actually manages to save Ted Kord's life with the assistance of both Jaime Reyes and a time-traveling Dan Garrett. And you know what? Ted actually tells Jaime he's proud to have him as his successor. Plus, in the series, they're constantly using Ted's notes on strategy and tactics. How do you like that, huh? They actually respect Ted Kord's legacy and history in the Blue Beetle series. How do you like that, huh? Am I right? Look, the book deserves another look through if only because it was just good. Now, I know it seems hypocritical of me to ask people to get over it considering my own thing with One More Day, but I understand the cyclical nature of comics. Someday, One More Day will be undone. I complain because I'd like that day sooner rather than later. Plus, it's just funny to make fun of it. Blue Beetle was a great book, and it deserved more readers than it had. What really bugs me about the whole thing is that a lighthearted book like Blue Beetle died in today's market, but other books survived. Oh, we can't have a book about a teenager having fun fighting crime, but we can have a book that featured a superhero who couldn't stop himself from having sex with anything and everything. We can have a book where Iron Man shoved civil liberties up the asses of good people, but a book that had Paco fighting off aliens with a big stick? Oh, that's not topical or extreme enough. It's like the 90s all over again. Dude, who needs that kid stuff like hope and joy? No, I want guns and lines all over people's faces. That's the extreme way of doing things, my most bodacious compatriots. Rob Liefeld, you will never not be popular. Blue Beetle continues in the pages of Teen Titans and will be joining Booster Gold as a backup story, so start getting ready. In the meantime, I encourage you all to purchase the back issues, and maybe someday, a kid from El Paso will once again have his own series to battle aliens and living hurricanes. Or maybe you won't listen and he'll die in another crossover event, and I'll have one more thing to rant about besides One More Day.
Well, we don't sound like Madonna. Here we are now. We're Nirvana. Sing distinctly when I wanna.
Dude, I bought like 4 issues of Superman number 75, the issue where he died, man. Oh, the polybag cover and everything. It's got like a wristband and obituary. Superman was never hardcore. He'll never last like characters like Bloodsport and Blood Axe and other characters with blood in their name, but I know that it's a collector's edition, so I know that those 4 issues of Superman number 75 will put me through college. Ah, college, I look forward to it. Getting high all the time, getting drunk, that's what college is all about. Not stuff like getting ready for the real world, that's just stupid. Hey, I'm 90s Kid, and what you see is what you get.